Hello, Serious Survivor here. Today we're going to look at a couple of articles that deal with not just government corruption, but the government's own concern about another American revolution. And the concern is well-founded, I should say, because due to the WikiLeaks and the other articles and the other testimonies that we've all seen about the corruption and the rigging of this election, about the tampering with votes, dead people voting, things like that, we know that there's a fix on here, and a lot of people believe that this election is completely rigged, and no matter which way we vote, that the outcome is already predetermined. And it looks like the government is worried about that. There are a couple of articles that we're going to look at from Red Flag News, and one is an interview in Congress itself showing the government's concern over Americans revolting or an armed revolution should the results of the election be determined that it was rigged, or the inappropriate candidate wins. No matter who you're voting for, you can't argue the facts. And the facts are that this election has been tampered with already and will probably continue to be tampered with. So let's look at the government's concern, the things that they're worried about, and they are worried about us. That's why the Clintons and the Obama administration is trying as hard as it can to take away our Second Amendment rights. Because without the right to bear arms, then we basically lose the right to do anything because we have no way to back it up. So these articles are going to show us the government's fear of us, and they should rightfully be fearful of the American public, because it is our duty. It is our civic duty and our duty as Americans to protect this country, whether that means through armed revolution or through more peaceful means. Hopefully everything could be peaceful, but let's look and see what the government is worried about with these two articles.
Maybe Mr. Lazarus knows better than I do how many bombs the president has to drop without congressional authorization before that becomes war. I don't know the actual number. But I think what Mr. King was getting at is, there is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government, or a revolutionary right to overthrow it. And that is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. But as I mentioned in my written and my delivered testimony, if the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, and they will conclude that neither are they. That is why this is a very, very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations on people that the legislature did not approve, etc.
An excellent conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Wait a minute. What did he say? Let's hear this again.
I think what Mr. King was getting at is, there is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government, or a revolutionary right to overthrow it. And that is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. But as I mentioned in my written and my delivered testimony, if the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, and they will conclude that neither are they. That is why this is a very, very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations on people that the legislature did not approve, etc.
An excellent conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, let's look at this article from Red Flag News. It's a very interesting article, and it could shed a little light onto the situation. That was written by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford. And this is a paragraph I'm fixing to read, and it's sort of disturbing. It has some very interesting undertones. And it says, first, we must recognize that we have one commander-in-chief, and until authority is transferred on January 20th, 2017, the joint force must remain clearly focused on and responsive to the existing national command authority. Second, the joint force must conduct itself in such a way that the new administration has confidence that it will be served by a professional, competent, an apolitical military. To that end, I have a duty to protect the integrity and political neutrality of our military profession. But this obligation is not mine alone. It belongs to every soldier, Marine, sailor, airman, and Coast Guardsman. Thank you for joining me in honoring our history, our traditions, and the institutions of the U.S. Armed Forces by upholding the principle of political neutrality. General Dunford, Joint Chiefs Chairman. To me, this sounds like the administration is worried about more than just the election. It sounds to me like the administration is worried about the rights of Americans to basically rebel or revolt against an administration as lawless as this administration has been. It's been pretty evident in the last few days of the news we've seen the last few weeks that this election is being stolen. This election is rigged. And Hillary Clinton will probably be the victor, not because I want her to be or anybody does, but because the election is fixed. And this is going to cause a lot of political turmoil, a lot of civil unrest when this does happen on election day. And it looks to me from reading this article and other articles similar to this, that this general is particularly worried about every soldier, Marine, sailor, airman, and Coast Guardsman, that they may not follow orders that they are given by this lawless administration. Let's look at another site here. I'll leave links to both of these articles in the description. And this one here says, top U.S. general pleads with troops not to revolt over 2016. And this is another article written by a totally different author. And it quotes the same quote. And as we read down below, there's a little more added into it. And he says, what we must collectively guard against is allowing our institution to become politicized, or even perceived as being politicized, by how we conduct ourselves during engagements with the media, the public, or in open or social forums. And this is what Dunford reminded the troops, or told the troops. And he further urged service members that the military must remain committed to the chain of command until the next administration comes in, and that the military should not undermine its credibility in the interim with the next president. He says, I have a duty to protect the integrity and political neutrality of our military profession. Notice how intent he is on maintaining that there must be political neutrality. Well, the government is based on politics, and you can expect neutrality when you're watching your country fall apart. We're watching an election being sold, an election being bought, an election being stolen, and he expects no one to do anything about it. So he's saying in his own way that he expects the military to sit back and take it, just like he does the rest of the United States. Well, I guess time will tell. I will leave the links to both of these articles. You be the judge. And for now, Serious Survivor, out.